Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the 10th Young IFSO Journal Club meeting. This is Wang Yang from China, the president of Young IFSO, and I'm so happy to co-chair this meeting with Renu, who is from the National University of Malaysia, and she's the consultant Bariatric surgeon. And thanks Renu for organizing this wonderful meeting on behalf of the Asian Pacific chapter. Also, I would like to thank IFSO, Manuela, and Stephanie for supporting us. And for the audience, if you are the first time to be here, please allow me to give you a very brief introduction to the Young IFSO Journal Club meeting. It is initiated by the Young IFSO. The aim of this meeting is to provide a platform for our young scholars, our surgeons, to learn from experienced seniors, share their research stories and research papers, and look for some collaborative opportunities with one another. And the meeting is organized online on the first Friday every 2 months. So if you are IFSO member, please pay attention to the emails from the IFSO, and you may also check the message from the Young IFSO Facebook page. So without further ado, I'm gonna hand it over to today's chair, Renu. Renu, please, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Wah. And as for those of you who might not know, Dr. Wah is actually the Young IFSO Young IFSO chair and president for the next 2 years that's coming. So, and I've just been appointed the secretary treasurer. So thank you for the trust. Thank you to the IFSO team for helping us organize this. And thank you to our wonderful speakers, moderators, and panelists for accepting the invitation to be a part of this program today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our 3 moderators who's going to be taking the show away with the 3 talks that we have lined up for you. Of course, with our rock star, Dr. Mufazzal Lakdawala, at the center of this. Our 3 moderators would be the first, Dr. Ghaffur Mubarak, who is a consultant surgeon at the Island Hospital in a wonderful place called Penang. For those of you who have not visited Malaysia, please do visit, and don't forget to visit Penang as well. You'll probably put on a few kilos in the process. Next up, we've got our next moderator, Dr. Amy Chiacha, who is a rock star physician, a super positive person who is constantly educating us about nutrition and everything related to bariatric medicine. And last but not least, our colleague and friend, Dr. Narong Bunyagat, who is from the BMA General Hospital in Thailand. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I will leave the show now to Dr. Ghaffur Mubarak to take it away with our first talk of the day. Dr. Ghaffur.
Thank you, Renu, and thank you, IFSO, for this opportunity. So I think without further ado, we will start the first talk, and it is by someone who is very familiar to all of us, Dr. Mufazzal Lakdawala, or Mulfi, as to how he is more affectionately known to the whole world. And Dr. Mulfi actually works as the Director of Surgery in Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital in Mumbai. And his topic is very interesting. It's going to be the role of social media in creating awareness for bariatric surgery, BAME or POOL. So Mulfi, the floor is all yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ghaffur. Thank you, Amy, Narong, and firstly, congratulations, Wah, for becoming the president, and of course, Renu Rajan for becoming secretary treasurer of Young IFSO. You guys are doing a great job. I'm really proud of you, and keep going at this. So today they've given me the topic of social media. I don't know how many of y'all saw my Insta post, but I did post. So if you're not, that's my story, and that's how we are going to speak about it today. I think I'll just put my presentation. I hope you can see it. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So the topic is social media and its impact on bariatric. Is it a boon or is it a curse? Well, in terms of social media networks, we all do know the global networks, which have become massive hits across the world. The global networks like Facebook, Twitter, Insta, Snapchat, various other things that you can, the more and more keep getting added on per region. Social networks with personal or physical connectivity means disease-specific networks like the ones we have for obesity or diabetes or for transplant networks, etc. Or then there are specific health-related networks like the healthcare forums, health industry forums, various other things. Then there are medical networks for non-professionals like the Daily Strength, Caring Bridge, Care Pages, My Family, etc. Medical networks for professionals like the RxDM, ACAD, AVDL, etc., as well as you've got the IBC, the SWOT networks, and various other things, including the IFSO network, IFSO Global. The scientific networks like Biomed Experts, ResearchGate, Academy.edu, Kudos, Mendeley, etc. Social networks supported by professionals like Health Board, SPAS, and Hope Association for the Disabled, and the Diabetic Energy, etc. Then finally, the scientific networks in the world's biomedical literature databases like the PubMed, Medline, PubMed Central, OVID Embase, EBSCO, various other things. So these are generally how networks are kind of divided in terms of how they, what they want to sell. Well, social media companies, and this is something that most of you would be aware of, founded not too long back. That is when I started doing bariatric surgery. I wish I had founded Facebook rather than becoming a bariatric surgeon, because today that would be my active users, 2.94 billion people, and my revenue would be somewhere around, how many other zeros you want to add on, 8,596.5 crores. Insta, newer baby on the line, 2010, already 1 billion people in 2018, 47.6 billion in terms of revenue. YouTube, and you've got YouTube's dropping every day. YouTubers are more famous than most actors are today. 2.6 billion in terms of active users, and a US valuation of 28.8 billion. WhatsApp has been bought over again, and now you'll see that this grows as we speak. So social media and bariatric surgery, well, it can be used in my idea for various things, like for educational purposes, for professionals, like you could use it like in various groups, like I just mentioned, the IBC group, the SWOT group, the IFSO global group, various other forums where you can use it, or for the general population in terms of educating them, where you put out videos explaining certain types of surgery. Renu does a fantastic job in terms of putting out a lot of the surgeries that she does on her Insta and Facebook profiles. Just be careful to protect the patient's identity when you're putting this out. Unless there's a really popular patient who's willing to speak about it, go out and do this, because it will get you a lot more brownie points. In terms of professional marketing, well, this is the area where a lot of the hospitals and various other networks really go out and market themselves to try and get patients. Personal and individual marketing, well, you can do your own ambush marketing by putting out, let's say if you were to get an award, go out and put it out. If you were to have done really a path-breaking case, go out and put it out, because you're not telling people to go out and listen to it, but all your users anyways come to know, or people who follow you anyways come to know what you're doing. In terms of if you were to find out whether there's any research work or literature on bariatric surgery on social media, well, this is one of the publications from Julio Mayol Martinez's group. And what they've said is that they looked at Twitter and Facebook accounts. They retrieved 622 Twitter accounts, and out of which 415 Twitter accounts and Facebook included in the analysis, because they ruled out the other ones. And what did they see? 21 were diet and life habits related, 47 were for general education, 39 for medical education, 231 for medical services promotion. If you will see, this is the section that receives maximum attention, medical services promotion, all right? Product promotion in a few. So now just look at this when I show you this next one. So medical center in trying to promote itself, okay, in terms of Facebook and Twitter. Facebook is more common, 58%. What they found in their study, the medical center promoted itself. Then medical services promotion, almost 65% used Facebook and 33% used Twitter. So Twitter is not used, because of its limited number of words, probably not used so much as Facebook is in terms of promoting medical services. Then look at the links to other online. 83% were links to other online resources. So if you're a famous person and have got a large following, invariably people will jump onto that bandwagon and add on and try and hook onto what your draw is or your followers are, and kind of do their kind of marketing from that. And eventually research and education. We wish this was much larger, the numbers, but if you look at it, only 4.4% of people used it for education or research purposes, and Twitter was only 13%, and overall 7%. Then if you looked at how you could use social media, well, like I said, medical center promotion is the maximum, and in that, medical services promotion is probably the maximum that any medical center promotes. Healthcare professionals, again, marketing themselves. So social media is being used more and more as a marketing tool. Research education, like I said, is a small thing. Personal experiences are put out there. Business is a marginal thing. And if you look at social media as being proposed as a possible tool for overcoming some of these barriers that are preventing bariatric surgery from becoming commonplace, given its capacity to disseminate very rapidly without actually having any boundaries to disseminate. It's relatively cheap as well as compared to other forms of marketing. Health-related messages can go out to mass audiences in an efficient, functional, and transparent way. According to literature, social media may be the first source that some of the patients with obesity may turn to when looking for solutions for their problems, and therefore an ideal place to start with your educational campaigns. If you look at these platforms, if you see Facebook really did go up, but has been losing speed over the last few years. Twitter, again, has never really taken its place in terms of marketing for bariatric surgery, but overall, it's kind of some of the newer platforms like Snapchat and various other things are being used now by more and more people, depending on the region where they are from. Then again, this paper, what this study actually overall suggests is that social media seems to be an efficient and robust method to learn about patients and their beliefs. Physicians and healthcare businesses already acknowledge the importance of social media. It's no longer news. Most of us do know the effects and the power of social media, not only to inform patients about bariatric surgery, but also to promote their products and services. Bariatric surgery on social media, which represents a total amount of around so many thousand users and platforms, and clearly surpass the popularity of medical conditions, especially for bariatric medical tourism. That's where medical services are being marketed, majority. Places like Mexico sell a lot of their stuff on medical tourism, and most Americans go there for that. So either you sell because you're skilled or you are cheaper. Whatever, if you see what people Google when they're looking for things, is basically to look at how cheap is a particular surgery available where. Increasing the popularity and the amount of educational and motivational accounts is extremely necessary, since this type of content provides patients to keep coming back onto your site for more and more knowledge. And this is a paper from Raul Rosenthal's group, where they looked at a total of 692 bariatric organizations from the ASMBS and the MBS QIP database. 1294 accounts were identified, out of which 574 were Facebook, 436 Twitter, and 284 YouTube accounts. Nearly 60.5% were private organizations, and only 39 or 40% you can say were academic. The academic and private organizations had similar and median number of likes and followers and subscribers when you went. So you can see that more and more private, at least 2/3 to 1/3 private organizations market their services as compared to academic institutions. Then this is a group which I wanted to speak about, because it is a small little group which started with a group of friends getting onto it, and now it's become like a movement. They have their own meeting, they have their own clubs, and if you look at the number of followers, 7.3K followers, and I think for Steph who's listening in, and for Manuela, probably this is the kind of movement that IFSO does need to start, because I think we have quite ignored the social media aspect. We've made some forays into it, we've ignored it, and I think it's time that we start this movement. And some of the youngsters who are there on this young IFSO group may be the champions that we are looking for to try and start this movement. And whatever help is needed, I'm always, of course, there. This is what we have. We have the IFSO Virtual Academy, And if you look at the number of members we have at 2.9K, a lot of our members are also on the IFSO group, and that is what we need to realize. The IFSO, if you look at the number of people following it, number of posts is far less, and we need to do much, much more to do it. But one good tool that we can use is if you look at IFSO Napoli in 2023, this is something we need to encourage all our members to join in, because everything around the upcoming Congress can be put up here, and it's just a click and we can all learn of what are the new things that are some deadlines, some of the new add-on new things that we are going to do at the meeting, basically marketing tool for the Congress to come. ASMBS has its own thing. If you look at the number of followers, again, very, very less as compared to some of the social media platforms which have grown only because of social media without having a brick and mortar kind of place to run their organizations. So if you look at the number of followers that the American Society has on its general platform is far more than it has on its social media platform. SOAD again has got 1.9K members. So again, a good place for obesity surgery to start off and try and get more and more stuff out there on the social media group, where in a click can get you some of the latest stuff and group discussions on some of the best papers that are going out there, which would be a closed group, but again, something interesting for younger people to learn from. Well, this is a cartoon that I put out because someone just sent it to me. I thought it was so apt. I think it's either time to come out of the digital world and stop spending so much time on the digital world. I think you'd rather spend it with your family. But if you are someone who's making money out of it or spreading knowledge, then well, stay on to the digital world and go out and learn more and more of how you can market yourself. Business and marketing and strategy, unfortunately, none of us as doctors are taught, but this is something, because bariatric surgery is a social disease. It is going to be here. Most people don't consider it as a surgery. They believe that obesity is something which is a lifestyle problem, and just by diet and exercise they can get there. And therefore, if you're doing well, we need to market ourselves correctly. Well, these are the various forms of marketing. We do know that print marketing in terms of newspapers, magazines, directories are very, very expensive. So you can't really do it. For outdoor media is even more time-bound and very, very expensive. Networking like CMEs, patient education awareness sessions, are all there, but it does not have that kind of reach. Word of mouth, of course, is very, very popular, and one good patient always gets you five other patients. One bad patient can, of course, take away at least 50 of your patients that are going to come to you. Doctor repositories, well, you can claim your profile like LiveRate and various other things. Digital, this is the whole thing. You can have your blogs, which are there for eternity. You can have your own website and keep working on it. Forums, but most importantly, social media. Social media is that tool that we are going to be speaking on today. So this is by word of mouth marketing, referral programs, product seeding, conversation creation, cause marketing, community marketing, brand blogging, various other things. Nothing works better than word of mouth, but again, the reach is limited. It's not global. Claiming your profile, Practo, LiveRate, various other things are there. But this is it. Now look at the reach. Okay, this is, I just put out my profile. My Insta profile has got 38.1K followers. So that's the reach that you do have. You can also, Amy's here, and Amy, thank you for this post. I don't know whether I am the real rock star here. Phil Shower definitely is there, but this is something that you get some of your friends to share things, and for people across the world, for maybe your patients who are there in your group, or for other people across the world to know what is happening and things across the world. This is all my Kabila friends, or all my crazy friends. As you can see from their faces, someone grows a mustache, someone looks like a Don out over there at the IFSO event. And so they can put it down on their profiles and you can share it. So it gives you some kind of credibility into what some of your achievements are. So benefits of social media for medical tourism. Well, like I spoke, it is a very, very strong, important arm if you are into bariatric medical tourism. There are, of course, only caveats that you don't really go out and speak the honest truth, and those are the disadvantages it has. But you can get more patients, reach out to more patients. You can create a credible brand without actually being a credible brand. If you're smart there, it nurtures a strong bond between patients and the brand. It gets a targeted messages to the patients who are looking out for you. There are measurable outcomes. So if you hire a bariatric social media company, they will give you measurable outcomes as to how many people have hit your site, how many new people are interested in looking at your site, and various other things. Again, far cheaper than various other things that I spoke about in terms of print media. This is something that I wanted to put out because this is a case that came to me completely out of social media. Iman, who was there like this before, when she left us, this was her smiley face when she left us for Abu Dhabi. Now, how did this happen? This was her sister who reached out via a Facebook post to me. And it started an entire journey, a kind of movement which came to me. And that was a Facebook campaign. Her sister said that she needed people to help out. I used Twitter in turn and reached out to the Foreign Minister of India at that point of time. And luckily, she happened to see me and she granted a medical visa because the embassy of India in Egypt had refused to give her a visa because she could not physically go there. So this is when everything moved, and it moved so fast. As you can see, the power of social media. Overnight, suddenly a medical visa was granted, and the sister got an option of treating her sister. This is something that happened where suddenly she was featured in every other newspaper across the world. When we did get her into India, I was probably on every newspaper across the world, from New York Post to Qatar Tribune to New Zealand to Sydney Morning to BBC to my friends from Japan, China, Taiwan all sent me cuttings, even from the newspapers there. So this is a way that one patient could make you either globally famous or infamous in either which way you want to look at it. What happened is it gave an advantage for a lot of patients across the world who were fighting with the scourge of obesity to reach out to me, and they all sent me social media comments and reached out to me to try and get themselves sorted. These young kids who out of a family of so many kids, only one kid was thin, the rest were all obese, and they were all dying. And there was media out over there that said the father plans to sell his own kidney to save his obese children. And that's how social media was so rampant, and I was contacted. So the power of social media, without even knowing me, so many people would write to me at that point of time and reach out to me. This is one guy who did extremely well. He had got operated in Mayo previously, post-gastric bypass, was flown into us on a private charter, thanks to the Sheikh of Dubai. Eventually, today, he's one of our happiest patients. He's lost around 210 kilos, I think, and is doing extremely well. But this is how media had spoken about him at that point of time. But again, whatever's good also has its bad. So disadvantages of social media for medical tourism, like I said. Social media can make or break the online reputation of a health tourist institution. One bad post out over there, and without even verifying, people can actually hang you out over there. A poor review by a user would only leave a negative impression and drop interest into your site. Sometimes conversations on social media can veer off onto unrelated topics which are not really, so you can't control the narrative when that happens. There's potential for patients to be offended. Controlling such conversations and filtering for offensive content can be quite often very difficult. Posting for unprofessional content that can reflect unfavorably on the institution. For example, I'll tell you something, like one of the surgeons in the US was banned because she was found dancing with a patient in the background who was under anesthesia. And so be careful when you post, how you post, and whether you've covered patient confidentiality and various other things. Traditional data security and retention policies may not work with features available on collaboration tools and can raise security risks and compliance issues that must be dealt with. Fake news spreads far faster than true news does, and social media has that power to be completely. So that's why so often governments, when they want to control the narrative, actually block all social media, right? Unfortunately, as doctors, we can't do that. This is the same patient, as you can see. This is some of our friends from Abu Dhabi who came and picked her up after she had done extremely well, took her, and then she had local friends here who actually went and bad-mouthed us for no reason we didn't really know. Overnight, suddenly, from being heroes to we were down to zeros. And that is how it happens, because the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent look guilty, but make the guilty look innocent. And that power, because they control the minds of masses. I want you to leave you with these thoughts. So when you market yourself on social media, be responsible, be careful. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak here. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Murphy. Very interesting talk. Very happy to hear that social media has such an important role to all of us across the world now. I think if you're a bariatric surgeon, social media is actually a very close friend of yours. It's very unique from being a vascular surgeon or cardiothoracic surgeon or things like that. If there are any questions, or I have some questions I can ask Murphy. Murphy, how do you differentiate on social media an act of solicitation rather than an act of creating awareness for patients on what you do? That means, how do you draw the line to say that this is not solicitation, but this is creating awareness in regards to bariatrics?
It's very, very difficult because the line is very, very blurred. It's so easy to skip on either side of it. Depends on which way you look at it, right? For example, if I were to put out a post of me doing some fantastic surgery out over there, which is path-breaking, most of my people who are not very happy with what I'm doing and the popularity that I gain would say that he's trying to solicit. Whereas if I were to go out and I can argue back and say that because of these gray zones that exist in social media, of course, we need direct acts of solicitation, like saying, I have done the fastest surgery, or I have done I've got an award for doing the maximum number of surgeries. That is solicitation, which I think we should resist from. You can't say I'm the best surgeon. Again, that is wrong. I think you can go out and say I do one of the safest surgeries. That again, I think is relatively okay. If you put out patient profiles and patient experiences out onto your profile and your page, as long as the patient's given consent, that I don't think is solicitation. Though that might be looked at solicitation, that is not, because the patient himself is giving a good. It's like any other thing, like you get a 5-star rating for a hotel or for any other service that you do. Eventually, we must understand we are giving a service to our patients. If they're happy with us, remember these bariatric patients are stuck to you for life. Do a good job, they'll keep sending you back patients. You do a bad job, you are in deep trouble because they will hound you in every platform that you are on and chase you down.
Yeah. My second question is, there are a lot of very popular bariatric surgeons now on social media. So with great powers comes great responsibility. So a lot of lot of pharmaceutical companies, a lot of dietary, milk, supplementary. These are all people who approach you with regards to your reach, in weight loss. So what is your comment about this? I feel that I've been getting quite a lot over the past couple of months, and I keep pushing them away. So I just want to hear what your input is on this.
So it's very good. Lucky. I mean, where's your bank balance? Please tell me, because I want to come there.
Not declare. Income tax
Just
stuff.
to share, Dr. Gafur has 600,000 followers on TikTok. Just to share with you, 600,000 followers on TikTok. So
there you go,
he
Gafur.
gets
There you go, Gafur.
Yeah.
Gafur, when you're becoming a doctor, tell me, my friend. No, but jokes aside, what I would like to tell you is that be ethical. Whatever you do, be ethical, because your job as a doctor is to be ethical first. And all these various other things. If you're an ethical doctor, you'll make enough money. You won't need to resort to these. But if you believe that one of these products is going to go out and benefit your patients, and there is a lot of lack of knowledge around that product, by all means, I think it is within your reach and you're being ethical enough to educate them about that product. For example, okay, recently I had done something on almonds, where there was a lot of stuff I put out on just basically the benefits of almonds, right? Or pistachios, for example. Quite often you don't know the benefits of something until you have put. So if you don't have your own scientific team to figure it out, get a team to actually get all the scientific facts correctly. And once you've got that correctly, there's no harm as a doctor. Don't publish a brand, but go out and speak about the benefits of pistachios rather than speaking about a particular pistachio. For a milk brand, for example, go out and speak of the benefits of milk or vegan if you want. Completely opposite. So speak about the pros of milk, and if you are vegan, what are the pros of being a vegan? As a doctor, you have every right, because you've got such a big TikTok following. You have 600 odd thousand people to subscribe to. So they would want to hear from you what your knowledge base is. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Murphy. I think if there are no other questions from the floor.
Dr. Maybe I can ask one question. Got a
Yes,
burning
yes.
question. I think few people have messaged me. Murphy, I remember in 2015, I remember being in Bombay and taking photographs of you and the team and editing them. But I personally wasn't so active on social media, and I think I learned a lot from you. And I've always wanted to ask you, how did you make that jump from the traditional way of creating awareness through public speaking and meeting face to face? How did you, at your age, a young age, I mean, how did you make that transition? Because I think a lot of us who are a lot younger can learn so much from you, because you do it very elegantly. And I'm very curious, what made you take that jump? How did you feel when you did it the first time? Was it awkward for you, or was it just a natural progression? How did that happen?
We've discussed this in person as well. The first time my daughter actually went and put out and made me a Facebook member, and suddenly I had, I think, some 500 people, mostly patients, who went and signed me up within a matter of like some minutes. And I was too scared. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to create a profile, nothing that time. And I said no. But later I learned is that this was probably, and if you look at my posts today also, I used to put out a lot of personal posts. I've gone completely off the personal post. So there is now a private as well as a commercial profile that people have. I don't really have the time to do both these profiles. So I try and put out things that I think might interest people, or something that I do frankly believe in. So some of the charity work, like Renu's been part of it, Aaron's been part of it, along with me, that we've done in rural India. I love to go out and put out something like that. Like recently I met the Prime Minister and I spoke to him about rural India. So that's something I've not really put out, because I thought that would be like showing off a little bit, but that's something that I don't necessarily go out and put out. But I think it was shared on every kind of YouTube platform in India, and lots of people came and spoke to me. So I think a lot of these you can do. You get better and better as you work. Renu, you've done brilliantly on this. I keep looking at your posts. I'm very, very proud that you've done brilliantly. The only thing that sometimes I keep telling her, what scares me is some of these huge stomachs that she puts out. And I keep telling her that sometimes general population doesn't want to see that big stomach or that big tumor that you remove, because they get kind of grossed out, because that's what they tell me. Their feedback to me is, Doc, what is this? You, please take this away. So if you see, I
You'll
don't
be
put.
surprised. Those are the posts that get the highest views and highest engagement. You'll be surprised. A photograph of me only gets 200 views. A photograph of a stomach gets 1,500 views. I'm not as favorable.
No, but I think you should target your audience. If your audience wants that, by all means, go out and do it. Please be very, very careful about patient confidentiality. Whatever you do, because you don't know where it will turn around and bite you. If not today, 1 week later, 1 month later, 6 months later, and you'll say, oh my God, what a big mistake. So if you're putting any patient out, make sure you've got their autograph on a piece of paper that will protect you, because today the patient is completely gung-ho about you. Tomorrow someone as pretty as Michelle comes along and says, Renu's not the best surgeon, I am the better surgeon. So you must make sure that whatever she's publicized about you is all wrong, and say good things only about me, and suddenly you're in trouble. You've been singing praises about this patient. So be careful about that. Please make sure that you've got every consent right out there before you put any patient out there. That's the only observation that I would say. Please go out and put more and more stuff, because more and more people get to know about you, especially the scientific stuff. Some of that, don't make it too technical. Make it as simple, that in a simple language that people can understand. For example, don't fight with your colleagues on social media about an MGB versus a sleeve versus a bypass, because then everybody has a rocking time. So do it in private groups, don't do it in public forums.
Okay,
Do any
Mufi,
of our panelists, Jeffrey, Aaron,
may I have one more quick question? In some countries, medical advertisement is not allowed or restricted by laws and regulations. So any suggestions from you? So how they can make use of social media in that situation without violating the law?
So you have to be very careful, because the laws are completely evolving as we speak, because every country has a different law frame. Even something that was allowed in India maybe 5 years back is no longer allowed in India, right? So you have to be very, very up to date with that. What are your medical council laws and stuff like that? But be extremely careful. I don't think anyone will have a problem as long as you protected patient identity. As long as you're doing it in closed groups, nobody will have any issues with what you put out in terms of content. Let's say if you have a doctor's group and you're discussing it here on IFSO APC, this is a closed group, nobody can have any problems with that, right? But if you put out in a public forum like a Facebook or a Twitter, which is open profile, which is not a closed profile, and remember that most of your profiles are not truly closed when you put it on a global platform like a Twitter or a Facebook, then you might be in trouble depending on the laws of the land. So please be very, very careful, because the last thing you want is for the authorities to get after you for a stupid post that you put up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renu.
Aaron,
I think I'll pass it back to you, Renu, to carry on.
May I ask
Thank you,
something?
Dr. Wah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mufi, for the great speech, by the way.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Mufi. Thank you. Bless. All right,
Bye.
so we're moving on to our next talk. I'd like to invite Dr. Amy to introduce our speaker. And Dr. Amy is from the China Medical University Hsinchu Hospital Weight Loss Medical Center.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, okay. So let's go. Our next session is about our review session. First, let's welcome Dr. Ahmad Tarmizi bin Muhammad, right? he works in Turkmenistan Armed Forces Hospital, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Today, his topic is very important because we know that coffee and alcohol are our daily necessities. And his topic today is about the alcohol and the coffee after bariatric surgery. So let's welcome him and let's have some review about how these two things have the impact on our bariatric surgery patients. Let's welcome Dr. Muhammad.
Hi everyone, and a very good day. My name is Ahmad Tarmizi. I am a bariatric and metabolic surgeon from Malaysia. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Young IFSO Asia Pacific chapter for this opportunity to present an interesting review topic on alcohol and coffee after bariatric surgery. When I was given this topic, I was wondering what happened if we mixed both coffee and alcohol in a single cup. And as I searched for the answer on the internet, here's what I found. It turns out mixing alcohol and caffeine together is not recognized as safe by the US FDA. So please don't do that. Let's discuss the topic given today, shall we? We're going to start with the alcohol use after bariatric surgery. As we are to discuss about the issues pertaining to alcohol use in post-bariatric surgery patients, here are some of the questions and issues that being faced by clinicians regularly. And we need to understand this, as we are obliged to advise our patients the reason for each issues related to alcohol usage after the surgery. There are strong evidence that linked risk of alcohol use disorder in patients that underwent weight loss surgery, particularly patients that has gastric bypass. And this is closely related to how alcohol being metabolized by our body. Following the changes that had taken place by the surgical procedures, post-bariatric surgery patients will be more sensitive to the effects of alcohol consumption compared to those in normal population. Alcohol use disorder is not prevalent only in post-bariatric surgery patients. The problem is probably inherent. Wendy et al. Published this original article in 2012 looking at the prevalence of alcohol disorder before and after bariatric surgery. The results are very intriguing. 7.6% of patients had alcohol use disorder even before the surgery. However, at 1 year later, the prevalence seems to reduce to 7.3%, only to pick up and increase by more than 2%, suggestive of new onset alcohol use disorder. And this has been developing in the same group of patients. This increase is significant, and this poses the theory that bariatric surgery may be a risk factor to patients who have a alcohol use disorder. Looking at the factors that may contribute to the alcohol use, the author of this review paper showed that patients with pre-operative use of alcohol and those who had underwent Roux-en-Y gastric bypass has been found to be significantly at risk of developing alcohol use disorder. In this slide, we are looking at the factors that are associated with risk addiction for alcohol use disorder. Being a male, being young, cigarette smoker, regular consumptions or intake of alcohol prior to the surgery, usage of recreational drugs, and patients who underwent gastric bypass. These are mainly the patients that you need to look after, and we need to identify them early so that we can actually intervene and advise them regarding the risk of alcohol usage after bariatric surgery. In order to understand how alcohol affect each type of bariatric surgical procedure, we need to understand on how alcohol being metabolized normally in a normal population. So once you drink an alcohol, this alcohol will stay in the stomach for a while. There's no absorption in the stomach, and the stomach did contain alcohol dehydrogenase, which will metabolize the alcohol, reducing its effect. After some time, with the action of the pylorus, gradual release of alcohol into the small intestine, and then the small intestine absorb the alcohol into the liver, where majority and bulk of the alcohol being metabolized in the liver by, again, alcohol dehydrogenase. And in a gastric bypass patient where the pouch is smaller and the rapid emptying of the stomach, because of the small size and there's no valve, there's no pylorus, this leads to any alcohol ingestion to be rapidly absorbed, and there's no first pass effect here. That means whatever you drink will go into the jejunum and rapidly being absorbed into the portal circulation. And once in the liver now has a surge amount of alcohol to be metabolized. And of course, being in a rapid weight loss situation after the surgery, this may burden the liver. So hence the liver may not be able to tackle every single alcohol, and this leads to rapid peak of alcohol concentration in the blood following even a small ingestion of alcohol. In sleeve gastrectomy, patient also displayed higher peak alcohol concentration and faster absorption, almost similar to the gastric bypass. However, if you see from the graph below, it showed that comparative to pre-surgical patients, the higher peak alcohol concentration in shortest duration amount of time occurs in both in gastric bypass and sleeve gastrectomy. This may be explained by the loss of first pass effect in the stomach. However, comparing between gastric bypass and restrictive procedure, there is an increased rate of alcohol dependence or alcohol use disorder in the group of gastric bypass patient. This can be explained by all the factors that we have discussed earlier. Uh, Alcohol metabolism is not the only factor that affects alcohol use disorder. There's also a theory behind that suggests that reward pathway influence on alcohol use, and this is called addiction transfer. This is only a theory where patient who had addiction to food replace their addiction to alcohol. It has not been proven, but the theory behind it is that it releases the same excitement between addiction of food and addiction to alcohol that release dopamine into the circulation and makes you feel good about it. And this is the recommendations and ASMBS position statement regarding the use of alcohol before and after bariatric surgery. Due to the rapid blood alcohol concentration rise that leads to intoxication. So how do we approach to safely initiate alcohol drinking post-bariatric surgery? And bear in mind that alcohol is mostly drank for purpose of pleasure. There's no physiologic need to drink alcohol. Therefore, I think this is the reason why most of the bariatric surgeons will promote abstinence and for patient to wait until the plateau of weight loss, 12 to 18 months at least post-operative, um, for them to restrain from using alcohol or start drinking alcohol. And if they want to start, they should be drinking at home in controlled environment because they can easily get intoxicated. They should limit to one drink of choice, low sugar, not mixed with other drinks. They should drink it slowly. They should also take it with food, and they should not drink and drive. That's why it's always best to do in a controlled environment, especially at home. What does a coffee contain? A coffee contain mainly the active ingredient is caffeine. That is a point of our interest for patient in post-bariatric surgery. How much caffeine is deemed safe for consumption? 400 milligram for adult non-pregnant, 200 milligram for pregnant women, and 100 milligram for adolescent. That's a limit for daily consumptions. And how much caffeine is in your favorite drink? We don't only have caffeine in coffee. There's also presence of caffeine in energy drinks, in Coke, in the chocolate drinks. But then we should know how much caffeine is in the drinks, and what are the effects of this caffeine to post-bariatric surgery patients. This is what caffeines can do on your GI tract. It reduces lower esophageal sphincter, it stimulates acid gastric secretions, it stimulates gallbladder contractions. However, there's no effect on small bowel transit and secretion, which is rather interesting. But however, it stimulates colonic motor activity. The effect of caffeine taken on post-operative ileus has been studied extensively. Even a systemic review and meta-analysis has been done, and it showed that it is in favor of caffeine use after abdominal surgery to relieve post-operative ileus. Unfortunately, there are no data available for bariatric surgery and caffeine usage. This is a similar recommendation on meta-analysis where caffeine did favored in patient who underwent abdominal surgery to return the function, including defecation and passing of flatus. There are no clear-cut evidence to avoid coffee in post-operative period. However, there are risks of potential reflux following use of coffee that contains caffeine because it affects on lower esophageal sphincter relaxation and increased gastric acid secretion. Otherwise, early use of coffee in post-bariatric surgery are not contraindicated. There's no clear-cut evidence on that. Despite widespread information, it's actually, if you go through the Googles, most of the bariatric center will definitely discourage their patients to use caffeinated drinks or coffee in the early post-operative period. With that, I thank you.
Explanation on the coffee and the alcohol effects on our bariatric patients, from very basic mechanism to the practical use. But I have any questions from the floor?
I wish to ask one question.
Yes,
it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. Very interesting. And it was great to meet you in Oxford. I want to ask, thank you. I just want to ask if you have, do you think that is there any relation between marginal ulceration and coffee usage? Because I see a lot of people who drink a lot of coffee before gastric bypass surgery in my country. Some of them are drinking more than 10 cups a day. And do you think, because I know there's a relation between alcohol consumption and cigarette usage, but we always skip the coffee. What do you think about this?
I think the relationship set from smoking and marginal ulcers are mainly related to ischemia because of the vascular involvement. But instead, the coffee usage, even up to 10 cups per day, which is definitely going to be more than 400 milligram suggested dose per day for patients, I don't think that gonna be the main or one of the reason why patient may develop marginal ulcer, despite there's some relationship being shown in studies before that coffee may induce gastrin secretions, but in a small pouch and you drink about 10 cups of coffee, I think mainly most of the coffee effects being absorbed. I don't think that is going to cause a lot of hydrochloric acid that can lead to the development of an ulcer. I think it's totally different from smoking. Smoking definitely had a more clear cuts causative effect rather than coffee itself.
Thank you
but
very
that's
much.
theory. I don't think we have any evidence so far. Nobody's studying that until now. Even me trying to find some evidence behind it, I couldn't find any.
Okay. Thanks
I guess it is because maybe in some culture people don't drink coffee. For example, in some Eastern countries, people usually drink tea, but not coffee. They don't have a very good sleep after drinking coffee.
Yeah. But I mean, we always associate coffee with caffeine, and that's mainly the discussions. But then, so far, when I try to look into coffee itself, whether it contains anything else that may have the causative effect, but the active ingredients does not really affect bariatric surgery patients on the other compounds found in the coffee. But anyone,
I still have one. Yeah, I have a question, because we all know that the caffeine will have some effects on our nutrition intake. So from your review, did you find any literatures that can show us that caffeine will have some impacts on our vitamin absorption after the bariatric surgery?
I couldn't find any that relates with regards to coffee or caffeine affecting the nutritional intake in bariatric patients or in any other surgeries, in fact. But I do find the relationship between alcohol and nutritional intake. Yeah, that is related in a way that when patients on alcohol, usually they they are easily intoxicated. So most of the time they'll make poorer decisions, you know, when they are intoxicated. So they can also lead to intake of more calories than necessary when they are in that state of condition. But for coffee per se, I don't see any explanation or any article being written up on that.
So any questions from the floor?
Do anyone, I mean, what is your advice usually?
Yeah, Wah brought up a very interesting point that in some East Asian countries, they don't drink much coffee, but they drink tea. But then if you're talking about caffeine being the star of this whole coffee debate, then tea also, correct me if I'm wrong, Checha, tea also has caffeine, but maybe in lesser quantity. So if you're sitting and having 10 cups of black tea, maybe that would be equal to a couple of cups of coffee. Am I right, Checha?
From the literature.
Yes, because we have very different kinds of tea in our East country. So different tea has different amount of caffeine inside. So for our when we take care of our bariatric surgery patients, we really will tell them how much or how cups of tea they can drink after the surgery and when they can take the tea. But for our policy, the after surgery 3 months is the minimum. I think the minimum period that they cannot take these kind of drinks. That will be that safe for the surgery patients. Yeah.
So no tea, no coffee for 3 months.
Yeah.
No tea, no coffee for
for 3 months. No
does
tea,
anyone
no coffee,
here
no cold.
advocate? Yeah. Does anyone here advocate? You know, sometimes patients can be quite tricky, cheeky, just like surgeons, right? We live off coffee, so they'll be like, you know, those of them who are hardcore coffee fans, they'll be, can I take decaffeinated coffee? Is there? I mean, do any of you say okay to that? Is there any reason to say not okay? Anyone read anything about this? Dr. Tarmizi? How about decaffeinated coffee?
Decaffeinated coffee still contains some caffeine, but in a much less amount. I think it's up to about 10 milligram to 15 milligram of caffeine, which is much lower than a tea, definitely. But I also want to know if it's really being advised not for them to take any coffee at all, because from my literature research for colorectal patients, because this is mainly studied in colorectal patients, the studies protocol sometimes initiate the use of coffee compared to water in the first 6 hours post-operatively, just to see the effect of caffeine on passing flatus. So if that's the protocol, I think the presumed so-called danger or the effects of caffeine, I don't think that's really a contraindication, you see, because all the protocols are quite it's very early on after surgery already been started. So I don't think that's supposed to be a contraindication, I mean, in general. Or do you guys put it as a contraindication?
Does anyone here practice differently, or everyone says no to coffee and tea for 3 months? I mean, it's interesting to know what your take is on this, because I think we get this question a lot. Is it okay to drink alcohol? Is it okay to drink coffee?
Yeah,
yes, I think hard. if you suggest not to drink a patient any coffee or tea for 3 months, she or he will drink it. Maybe first week you can stop it, but after that it's impossible. Also for tea, because I suggest lighter tea and sometimes decaffeinated coffee for 2 weeks. Then I will give it for free, but not too much, like not more than 5 cups a day, because then they will be in trouble. But I let them drink a little bit, because otherwise they will feel restricted and drink more. They won't listen to you. But I don't know what the other patients do in the eastern parts.
All right. Tan, Jeffrey, Narong, do you guys have any input? How do you deal with this question?
In my experience, in my experience, we for the first 10 surgery I done, I tell the patient to not to drink tea. Indonesia is very tea country. Everybody drinks tea instead of natural water, white water, mineral water. Nobody drink that. Everybody drinks tea. So for the first 10, I say not drink tea for 3 months, but like Aaron tell, everybody drinks tea, nobody hears me. So after that, I saw there's nothing happen. So for now, after the surgery, I give tea to the patient, but like Aaron said, the lighter one, the lighter tea one, because if not, they will not drink. They just not drink, then drink some mineral water.
So out of worry for dehydration, you say okay to tea.
Yes.
Yeah. Tan, do you do things differently?
Yeah.
What is your take?
For me, I'm not that strict on for patient when they ask me about whether they can take tea or coffee. Like what you say, I told them the most important thing is your hydration status, in which I think the most common problem immediately after surgery will be the hydration, as we know that either tea, coffee or tea, they are diuretics, so they tend to be dehydrate faster. So as long as other than tea and coffee that they drink, if they can keep themselves well hydrated, for me, I think should be fine. Yeah. But I don't see. I mean, in Singapore, most of patients don't drink so much coffee. If they really drink, will be 1 to 2 cups per day. But basically, in general advice, I'll tell them to not have any caffeine for the first 2 weeks. After that, should be fine as long as they can get themselves well hydrated.
Dr. Narong, how is it done in Thailand? What is your advice to your patients?
Okay, I have to tell you, Tori, I'm not restricted even coffee and tea, because finally I try to let them find a balanced way that they can do. And some of my patients, they put the tea in the water and they can drink more water in the second day. I think that's good. So I'm not restricted, but I just tell him don't drink too much. That's it.
So I used to be very strict. Just to share, I used to be very strict about this as well. I think all of us, when we start off in our careers, we follow A is A, B is B, what our predecessors do and what we are taught and what we're told. Not much thinking process, not much auditing going on. But when you have enough of cases, then you can look back and see, okay, nothing happened. Maybe we can relax a little bit. So I go with that whole diluted coffee thing. But the first 2 weeks, I say no to coffee and tea. After that, when you see their beautiful faces literally begging you, doctor, when can I have coffee at every appointment? How many times can you say no? And like Aaron rightly said, the more you say no, they're drinking coffee anyway. They just want to hear it from your mouth. So I say, okay for diluted coffee, not so much for the espresso or double espresso shots. Is there any more questions? Do we have any questions? Checha, do we have any questions from the audience? If no, thank you so much, Dr. Tarmizi. Thank you so much, Checha. I hope the audience has benefited from this topic. We've got very interesting topics today. I think topics that most of us as young IFSO members would definitely face in our day-to-day practice. Now I'm looking forward to the next topic. We've got beautiful Michelle Bernadette from Philippines. And as you know, Philippines is going to be organizing the next IFSO APC conference. So Michelle, we're looking forward to seeing you in person. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Narong as the moderator for the next session. Take it away, Dr. Narong.
The last session is paper discussion. We also know that bariatric surgery can improve the female fertility, but we don't know much about male fertility. So I think this is the interest topic about male fertility after bariatric surgery, presented by Michelle Bernadette Limlu from Philippines. She is a bariatric consultant from Chinese General Hospital and Medical Center, visiting consultant in Cardinal Santos Medical Center, and medical specialist in Lisa Medical Center, and active consultant in Province Hospital. Please, Limlu.
much for the introduction. Hi, good day or good evening to everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So I have been tasked to give a paper discussion on the very interesting topic of male fertility after bariatric surgery. So let's talk about infertility first. Infertility is basically the failure to achieve a pregnancy after 12 months or more of regular unprotected sexual intercourse. So it actually affects 8 to 12% of couples globally, with a male factor being a primary or contributing cause in approximately 50% of couples. So we have the primary and secondary infertility. The primary infertility is basically inability to have pregnancy, and secondary infertility is inability to have pregnancy after previously successful conception. So literature has shown that there is a causal association between obesity and male fertility because of several mechanisms. One, the alteration in the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis along its and as well as crosstalks with other reproductive hormones. It can be affected by obesity. The heavy adipose tissue deposits would result in an increased scrotal temperature and the release of pro-inflammatory mediators, which could cause systemic inflammation and oxidative stress, thereby resulting in impaired semen parameters. And then even beyond that, genetics can also be affected. The obesity may modulate sperm genetics and epigenetic conformation. So obviously, there is a very important issue of having to address the obesity first if we want to address the infertility that is caused by it. So of course, we all know that bariatric surgery is the best treatment for obesity in terms of weight loss, diabetes, and long-term effectiveness. And some studies have shown that surgery has improved sex hormones. However, the effects on semen parameters have been controversial. So I'm going to talk about this more later. So for our paper discussion, I'm going to be presenting this very interesting paper, Bariatric Surgery Impact on Reproductive Hormones, Semen Analysis, and Sperm DNA Fragmentation in Men with Severe Obesity, a prospective study by Woods published in 2020. So for the study design, the patients were recruited in the study were part of the bariatric surgery program of the obesity division. The control group subjects were non-obese patients with BMI of less than 35 and were actually candidates for voluntary vasectomy and have fathered at least two children. So they're fertile. So, and then for the obesity group or the intervention group, only patients with a BMI of over 40 or BMI of over 35 with serious comorbidities are to be included in this study. Of course, we have these subjects have exclusion criteria. And then for the obesity group, they are further subdivided into the surgical and the non-surgical group, although the non-surgical group, while they will be waiting for surgery, but still being managed medically. So all of these subjects will be subjected to a baseline Euro exam, reproductive hormone assessment, semen analysis, the evaluation of sperm DNA fragmentation. All of this will again be done at 6 months later. And then after that, the entire subgroup, obese subgroup, is then further subdivided to reevaluate to reflect the effects of rapid weight loss and the metabolic changes. So these are the baseline characteristics of our two groups of our control and intervention group. The BMI of the control group is at 27 and the obese group at 45. And of course, as expected, the obese group has a higher prevalence of hypertension and diabetes. And then comparing their hormonal panel and semen parameters, the obese group has higher levels of estradiol, LH, and FSH, and worse semen parameters compared to that of the control group. And there are actually 3 subjects that were newly diagnosed to have azoospermia. So apart from that, the obese group also has a lower ejaculated volume, sperm count, concentration, motility, morphology, and a higher level of sperm DNA fragmentation. So just for clarity, sperm DNA fragmentation actually refers to the sperm chromatin integrity. So if we have a higher integrity, that means there's less DNA fragmentation, which means there's actually better quality of sperm. So baseline comparison of the two groups, the control and the obesity group, shows that the control group has lower DNA fragmentation or they have better sperm. So this type of information can be useful if the couple will be considering assisted reproductive technology. So now let's compare the outcomes of the two obese groups 6 months after surgery. So out of the obese group, there were 10 patients that did not come back for reevaluation. Hence, at the end of the study, there were only 18 subjects in the surgery group and 14 subjects in the non-surgical group. And then Roux-en-Y gastric bypass was done in 15 subjects, and 3 of the subjects underwent gastrectomy. So at 6 months, we can see that the prevalence of hypertension and diabetes were found to be lower in the surgery group. And then looking at the hormonal panel, we can see that the testosterone levels have increased dramatically in the surgical group, as well as the levels of the sex hormone binding globulin, the FSH, and LH. The hormonal levels in the non-surgical group were unremarkable. Now for the semen analysis, there was 1 patient from each group that was not able to produce a semen sample on the follow-up. So they only included 17 and 13 patients in the surgery and non-surgery group. So if we're going to compare them for the surgery group, some of these subjects actually had a reduction in sperm concentration and even 2 subjects developing azoospermia. Now, despite all that, despite the decrease in the sperm analysis, if we look at the DNA fragmentation, the sperm DNA fragmentation, we will notice that the percentage of class 1 sperm, or those sperm with a higher DNA integrity, was found to have increased. And then the class 3 sperm, or the sperm with a higher fragmentation, has decreased, meaning that there was actually improvement in the sperm chromatin integrity after surgery. So these DNA changes were not observed in the non-surgical group. So now seeing these results, the authors wondered if the amount of weight loss was actually related to the size and of the effect observed in our variables. So they analyzed all the data using the linear regression test using the BMI loss in percentage, and it was calculated, showing that the decrease in BMI is actually strongly correlated to the higher levels of testosterone, FSH, and sex hormone binding globulin, and this was negatively correlated with the total ejaculated sperm. Now, because the subjects in the surgery group had undergone 2 types of surgery, bypass and gastrectomy, the authors wanted to do further analysis to see if the type of surgery actually had an effect on the results. But we have to note that because the sample size of the gastrectomy group had only had 3 subjects, this would actually reduce the power of statistical analysis. But we will still notice that there was still increase in the testosterone and reduction in the sperm concentration and total ejaculated sperm in both groups. Likewise, even the sperm chromatin integrity of both groups are seen to have improved in either surgery. So of course, this study has its limitations. There's selection bias, which is inherent to all non-randomized studies. And of course, the selection bias would limit generalization of the results obtained. There is only a very small sample size, and there is only 1 sperm sample obtained from each subject in each of the study time points. And the outcome that was observed, investigated, only reported short-term outcomes. So this study suggests that some of the deep detrimental changes in the reproductive health can be improved, may be improved after bariatric surgery, at least at the six-month follow-up. So patients would have increased testosterone, FSH, and sex hormone binding globulin, and a reduction in prolactin levels. However, semen parameters did not improve, but there was noted improvement in the sperm chromatin quality. So we would actually need further studies to establish if these changes are stable over time and if any long-term weight regain would actually influence these findings. So it's very interesting that we have these findings. So I decided to go through some more literature. So there weren't a lot of meta-analysis, but those that I found actually showed similar results of increased testosterone after bariatric surgery and a decrease in estradiol. However, these meta-analysis reported the semen parameters had varying outcomes or were not significant, did not have any significant effect. So, but it's kind of difficult to give a concrete conclusion, to derive a concrete conclusion from these meta-analysis, because the papers did not include a lot of studies and the sample size were quite small. Also, there was a lot of heterogeneity between the studies in these meta-analysis in a lot of aspects: the source of samples, the sample size, parameters included, the reporting, and etc. So here are just some of the prospective studies that were included in the aforementioned meta-analysis. And you can see that the sample sizing in these prospective studies were still quite small. And then, although these studies reported testosterone, it was only one paper, Samavat, that reported the sperm quality. And these papers also had reports of oligospermia. And in light of that, we cannot ignore that there are actually reports of worsening semen parameters and even secondary infertility due to azoospermia after undergoing bariatric surgery. So, what's with the azoospermia? So there are actually a few theories of what could have caused the azoospermia. There could be metabolic and nutritional changes brought about by the bariatric surgery that could be harmful to the spermatogenesis. There is a theory that the interruption of the normal in the bariatric surgery and the weight loss had induced an interruption in the normal hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. And there's the theory that lipophilic toxic substances, namely endocrine disruptor chemicals or EDCs, are released from the fatty tissue during the weight loss. And that these EDCs are actually known to cause impairment of conventional sperm parameters. They're genotoxic and can result in genetic instability. So for us to have a better understanding of the impact of bariatric surgery on male fertility, we actually need a lot more studies, better studies. We would need these studies to have long-term outcomes, have larger sampling size, so that would fit to a more general population to decrease selection bias. And maybe we could consider including the following parameters to evaluate for the factors that are affecting fertility as well: the EDC levels and the sperm chromatin integrity. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Okay, and anyone have question? Someone have any question? Okay, I have some question. So, if patient concerned about infertility, okay, and what is your advice before surgery and which operation do you suggest for this patient?
Sorry, can you say that again?
I didn't have any audio earlier.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you say that again? Sorry.
Okay. I have one question. So, if patient concerned about infertility, and what is your advice or before surgery, and which operation do you suggest for this patient?
Yeah, well, I think it will still boil down to what will be the optimal outcome for each patient. You know, after we do all of these workups, we do the actual history, physical, the workup, the laboratories, and everything. Whatever will boil down to the best type of surgery that will provide the optimal weight loss for these patients is still the surgery that I would recommend for them. However, of course, in light of these studies, I was actually quite surprised about these outcomes because initially, from like training, parang all my perception of that, oh, bariatric surgery is going to improve infertility and all that stuff, and then here comes Renu, and then she gives me this topic, and I'm like, oh my god, it's mind blowing on what the literature is actually saying, that there's cases of azoospermia. So in light of this, you know, there's not really any concrete evidence of which one will cause what. So it's a lot of like mostly anecdotal reports of, it's like just a case series of these anecdotal reports. So there's no statistical weight to them. So it's really just something that you have to tell the patient, you know, there's a slight chance that this could happen. We don't really know if it's going to happen to you or not. And if you're really concerned about that, you can have the option of having, you know, freeze your sperm for future purposes for whatever reason. And you know, if you can afford it, then I don't think there's any loss to do that, right? So yeah, I think it's not really, because there's also no direct correlation whether it's going to be bypass or hysterectomy that will be a higher risk factor to cause a decrease in oligospermia. Apart from that, these studies, some of these studies did mention that there was improvement. There was one case report that had an improvement in the oligospermia after giving anastrozole. 2 years time, they were able to conceive a child. So you see, there's, because of the lack of studies, long-term outcomes, so we cannot really identify, or we cannot immediately conclude to the patients that, you know, you're gonna have a risk for azoospermia, so you better go freeze your sperm. Okay, so it's just all, I think it's just all about being transparent with your patients. No, I don't know everything. I'm not gonna be giving you false hope, or I'm not gonna be reassuring you that this is not gonna happen or this is gonna happen, and so on.
Why I gave this topic was because exactly like, you know, what Michelle said, which is through training, we were under the impression that it's going to improve fertility in both men and women. But here comes studies in males, which just, you know, blows your mind. I mean, it's a little bit different from what you see in clinical practice. But then again, number to number, how many male infertility cases do we see in our practice, right? We see more of female cases. So yeah, in my practice, I've seen 2 patients whose wives are on the smaller side, male patients, who after 1 year of bariatric surgery, they managed to impregnate their wives. So I would assume that the sperm quality improved. But then again, there is no testing. So there is no objective way of us saying that bariatric surgery was the cause for that improvement of fertility. You know, not many patients are willing to come forward and get tested. I don't know. I mean, Narong, what's your take?
And
what have you seen in your practice?
In these studies, it just so happens that some of these studies gathered their patients from infertility clinics. So that there itself is already, there's already a selection bias for us. So we can't really tell. I mean, so far from all of the studies, the prospective studies that I saw, the one that I presented actually had the best study design among all of the other, you know, browsing through the net for the past 2 weeks for prospective studies that had at least a decent amount of subjects or a decent study design to it, you know. So yeah, and if you're gonna look at the meta-analysis, there's so much heterogeneity. You can't really, I can't completely agree with the conclusion of each paper.
So there's that problem. Maybe if, there's really an infertility specialist who might be interested in looking into turning this to an actual long-term prospective study, then maybe they could tap into bariatric centers instead of just looking at the subjects through the infertility clinics. That might be able to give us more general idea of how bariatric surgery would actually impact the male side of the infertility process.
I just have a question, this quick one, Michelle. Do you think that this so-called azoospermia that we're seeing in these papers are actually a product of the end organ damage of obesity, sort of like diabetes, target organ damage? So you're seeing that disease progression and then labeling it, oh, bariatric surgery has caused this, rather than it actually being a natural disease progression due to that long-term obesity effect itself. Could that be one of the confounders here?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question that I asked myself as well. Because it's actually quite contradictory. Because when you expect that there's an increase in testosterone and increase in other sex hormones, the FSH, LH, and all of that, you would expect physiologically for that person to have spermatogenesis. But there were some studies who did testicular biopsies, and then that they saw that there was an arrest in spermatogenesis at the testicular level. So that means there's actually some block, because when you look at infertility, when you break it down into how you're going to work up these patients, it's either a pre, intra, or post-testicular cause of infertility. But in these patients, there was an arrest, well, just one paper anyway, who did the testicular biopsy. There was an arrest at the testicular level. Now, one theory was that about the endocrine disruptors that any normal person would actually gather through our environmental, daily living, that there was a release of these of the endocrine disruptors from our adipose tissues because of the rapid weight loss, and that these substances were actually toxic to there's the actual spermatogenesis. Now, who could be at risk for this? We don't really know, because there weren't actually any studies indicating any risk factors, just that, that there could be a risk of spermatotoxicity. So there's that. There's another question mark for, good research, somebody to do a good research on.
Yes, Aaron, actually, I know you presented in Miami on this topic, so maybe you can share a little bit of input.
Yes, we had a paper on transit bipartition patients, which all of them were diabetic, and most of them had diabetes more than 10 years. And we have evaluated testosterone values after transit bipartition 6 months later, and we've seen that in all the patients, the testosterone values raised almost 1.5 volts. So it's not enough, actually. We looked at also the EDF scores, and there was a 70% increase in that. I think not only the sperm quality or the testosterone boost also is the reason for increased infertility, but they can go into sexual activities more easily because their pannus and also their body shape also changes, and also I think the penis size also increases because of the loss of fat. So this is another reason that their fertility also increases. So we can also think about that when we are looking at the fertility of a male from another perspective. And thank you, it was a very interesting topic.
Yeah, also, it's also interesting to see that even though, because in this particular paper it was only 6 months, but the other papers had presented follow-up for the subjects at up to 1 year or more, 12 to 18 months to up to 24 months. Now, they found, but since previous patients who had azoospermia or oligospermia were able to have conception because of assisted reproductive technology. So that would indicate still that, that even though they had oligospermia, they're still able to have pregnancy because the sperm quality was actually better after the bariatric surgery. So I think that's a really big factor for those who still want to conceive in spite of them having oligospermia.
Does anyone
may I ask any one of us are doing any study on the sexual function before and after bariatric surgery. I remember that Ian did that before, right? You have presentations before.
He presented in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I think your paper is already published, Aaron.
Yeah, yes, it is already published after transit bipartition, 6 months. We looked at the 6 months total testosterone values and EDF scores, and there was a significant change, but we didn't go further because it's usually you cannot get the testosterone value from all the patients afterwards. So to do a long-term study, I think we need to have it prospective and more planned, just focus on this. And it will be nice. Maybe we can make a collaboration all together and plan a study and do it in all of our patients. I think it will be interesting and it will be published very easily because nobody
Aaron,
does that.
When you say there was a significant change following transit bipartition, was that a good change or a bad change?
It was a good change, and all these patients BMI was below 40, so they were not very super obese patients. Then all of them were diabetic. Yes, so their testosterone values really raised up, because also they had, some of them had C-peptide levels even below 1.5. So this indicates that bariatric surgery really helps, but this is retrospective. We don't have a prospectively planned and randomized study, so we cannot really say that bariatric surgery cures infertility or like increases sexual drive and also the libido and also the the sperm quality. So we need to prove it in a prospective way.
Chia, do you have any experience to share with us coming from Taiwan?
In fact, just like what you said, of the patient come for our infertility problems are female. For the male, I really don't have so much experience on that, and we don't do any sexual function before and after the surgery. So this topic is really interesting, and we really learn a lot from this topic.
Somebody even suggested, perhaps for the next journal club, the rate of divorce following bariatric surgery because of sexual libido mismatch. So maybe that's a good topic for us to discuss also, because in my practice, I've seen quite a number due to the sexual libido mismatch. So that's going to be an interesting topic. Please, we've booked it for APC, so don't let any other chapter steal that topic from us, okay? Because I think in APC, we've got a very diverse group. Some countries where the population is a little bit more reserved to talk about things, and in some countries where it's a little bit more acceptable. So it's a very diverse group, and we don't hear much, from the APC side. Often we tend to quote those from our Western colleagues. So I thoroughly had an enjoyable time today. It's really nice listening to all of you, and we should do this more often,
Yeah, I'd also like to invite everyone. I hope I get to see you guys here in Manila in November 3 to 4.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll be there. Narong, do come. Amy, if you guys have the chance, Tan, Jeffrey, Aaron, Mizi, please do come to Philippines if you get the chance. It would be lovely to catch up. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation from the bottom of my heart on behalf of WA as well. I know you guys were not expecting this, but what our vision was to have a diverse group and to get more people who've never been on the Young IFSO platform to be involved. So here's more power to APC. We look forward to having more and more Asia Pacific countries involved in our journal club. Please do share about this journal club with all your juniors. And if you guys have interesting out-of-the-box topics to discuss in our next journal club, please don't hesitate to share it with us. Let's not stick to what is traditional, and let's start thinking about answering questions that are always being put forward, but no one really has, maybe the courage or, to come forward and ask these in a public open platform, right? So, do you have any parting words?
No, you have done a very great job, and thank you again for organizing this, and also thank you for all the moderators and speakers. You guys give a very excellent discussion on the interesting topics. So maybe we should do some clinical study together, and after
WA's hospital has a lot of money, so we should take him up on this. Okay, he's very active in research. I know Singapore is a rich country, but WA has more money than all of us put together, so we should take him up on this, guys. He's constantly writing papers. So I think if you guys have any topics that you would like to collaborate, maybe even simple things like vitamin levels, anything that you can think of, maybe we should bug Wah and maybe write a paper together. And I'm pretty sure it will get published.
Yes. So Ian and Renu, do you have anything to say before we end the session?
Anybody else has any parting words? All right. Thank you so much, everybody. So much love from all of us, and see you guys in the next one. Until then, adios and see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.